The Copa Pure 3 Elite is Adidas's flagship leather football boot. They're going to retail for $250, and I can tell you right now they are a big improvement over last year's Copa Pure 2. So what's new with these football boots, and should you be considering them as your next pair? That's what we're going to get into in this video, and as always, we'll have all the links to the boots we discuss in the description below with discount codes. Let's get into it. Being that leather is probably going to be the main appeal of getting these football boots, we'll start off with the Fusion Skin leather upper. Now, in my opinion, this is definitely going to be one of the biggest areas where I noticed the most improvement between the Copa Pure 3 and last year's Copa Pure 2. Just this upper seems so much softer. And I would say even by the standard set by other great leather football boots, the Copa Pure 3 is even softer than a lot of its competition. Now, while the upper on the Pure 3 is really soft, it doesn't have the same thick or padded feel compared to most of the other leather football boots you find on the market. By comparison, it does feel a lot more thin. And that leather is mostly going to be highlighted just throughout the toe box and the front of the boots. The 3 stripes Adidas logo on the sides here is going to be a synthetic, and as you get around to the back of the boots, towards the heel area, you are also going to find a synthetic material. Running through the center of the boots here, you are going to find a pretty traditional lacing system with another big improvement in this new prime knit tongue. This tongue does have a nice stretch and thickness to it, and it's probably what's going to be in contact with most of your foot as you're wearing the boots. And that lacing system you get does run pretty deep, so you're going to have a lot of adjustability throughout the length of the boots, and you're going to have an added runner's loop lace hole towards the top of the ankle. And thankfully, with the Copa Pure 3 Elites here, the heel area is going to be really nice and very deep to make sure you get enough lockdown. And the design of this heel area is going to be really similar to what you find in the other top-end Adidas boots like the F50 Elite and the Predator Elite. Basically, it's really thin all throughout, and then you're going to have 2 soft cushions on either side of the back of the heel. I'm happy to see that the heel area was executed well on these, because on the more affordable Copa Pure 3 Pro, I found the heel area was really lacking. It was far too shallow, and it also felt a bit bulky. As far as weight is concerned, the Pure 3 is going to be relatively light, coming in at 228 grams in a size 10.5 US. To put things in perspective, that's only about 20 grams or so heavier than the lightest boot Adidas sells, which is going to be the F50. Now, flipping over to the back of these boots, we're going to see another area where I think these boots improve upon their previous generation, and that's going to be the sole plate. Now, compared to the previous model, where I definitely thought that sole plate was best for use on firm ground surfaces, while the new Copa Pure 3 is advertised for use on FG, I actually think that this sole plate is pretty versatile for both FG or AG. You're going to have mostly conical studs throughout the length of the entire sole plate, with the exception of these 3 slightly more angular studs towards the midfoot. I think the sole plate offers a good balance between rotational traction and also not being overly aggressive. And then in terms of the tooling of the sole plate, they're actually going to be thickest just around the heel and midfoot area, so you're not going to have almost any flexion in that spot, but then towards the toe box, you are going to have a decent amount of snap. I'd say as far as stiffness, these are maybe on the softer side of medium. They definitely allow for a little bit more flexion compared to the previous torsion frame sole plate. Now, when it comes to the fit, I think just like the design, we're seeing an improvement across the board. As I mentioned, the highlights of the boots are definitely going to be that soft leather upper as well as that prime knit tongue, and both of them are things that you immediately notice when you get your feet inside the boots. And not only do the materials feel high quality, but also the shape of the boot is solid as well. I found that the previous Copa Pure 2 was just a little bit too narrow for my foot shape, but these I think are more on the average side as far as width are concerned. Now, I wouldn't say they're one of the wider boots on the market. I'd say they're very comparable to the F50 from Adidas if you've tried on those boots before. Now, while I found the width to be pretty average and at least accommodating for my feet, I do want to call out that the length of these boots is definitely on the longer side. Now, I get almost all of my football boots in a size 10.5 US, and I've done the same with Adidas boots in the past, but I did notice in these boots, when I went true to size, I had a decent amount of dead space at the front of the boots. Definitely a little bit more than I'm used to. Now, even though these were a little bit longer than I expected, the lockdown I got from the lacing system and the heel area was still really good, and I didn't notice any slipping towards the back of the boots whatsoever. I would say if you want more of a relaxed fit with a little bit more space at the front of the boots, you could go true to size. However, However, if you want slightly better performance and to have a more snug, close-fitting pair of boots, I would probably recommend going down a half size. For me personally, I think if I got these in a size 10 instead of a 10.5, I would have gotten a little bit more closeness and sensitivity in terms of touch, especially at the front of the boots. But overall, in terms of fit and feel, I think that these complete the trio of top-end Adidas boots really well. And for the first time since I started reviewing football boots a couple years ago, I think I can officially say that I can recommend all of the top-end Adidas boots from the F50 to the Predator to the Copa Pure. In the past, there was usually always one of them that wasn't quite as good as the other, but with the improvements we've seen in this model, I definitely think I can recommend them. But let's be honest, considering that all of these boots retail for at least $250, they should feel great. Now, as far as playability is concerned, despite the fact that I found these to run pretty long, I still had a great experience playing in them. Now, as I played in these, I tried out two different lacing variations, the first being just the standard way, and then the second being taking advantage of that runner's loop towards the top of the ankle. I found both of them worked really well. The lockdown is great either way. Maybe you get just a little bit more security when you take advantage of that runner's loop. But at the same time, you also get a little bit more pressure on the top of your ankle when you do the runner's loop. So at the end of the day, it just comes down to personal preference. Now, dribbling and shooting in these feels really crisp due to that thin upper, but for some of my shots, I do wish I went with that 10 instead of the 10.5, just to give me a little bit more sensitivity and less dead space at the front of the boots. And I was trying to put my finger on this while I was playing in these, because while the touch on the ball does feel great, as I mentioned, they almost don't really feel like leather. Because I've tried on dozens of leather football boots. I've got the Copa Icon 2 and the Mizuno Morelia Neo 4 Beta here. And while they both have leather toe boxes that are really high quality, the leather on these has a certain structure to them that you can really quickly identify. Whereas the thin softness on the Copa Pure 3 here, it almost reminds me of the synthetic that Adidas uses in their F50 Messi series. Now, I'm definitely not saying that that's a bad thing, because I love the upper that's on the F50 Messi, but I did just want to point out that it feels a little bit different compared to your conventional leather boots. And the traction I got from the sole plates on these also felt great. Even though I was on an artificial grass surface, I definitely thought that they were appropriate. But I did want to mention another thing regarding the sole plates on these boots, because I saw some people commenting who just recently got the Copa Pure 3 over the past couple weeks that they are already noticing sole separation on these boots just after playing 2 or 3 times. Now, I haven't worn these boots down enough to notice any significant sole separation on these, but I do want to point out that for $250, I think Adidas could be doing a better job to reinforce their sole plates here. I mean, right here, I have a pair of Asics DS Lite X Fly 5s, and these retailed for around $160 when I picked them up. And as you can see here, they actually added a rivet at the top of the boot and towards the side of the boot here. And what these rivets do is they basically just provide additional reinforcement to connect the sole plate to the upper of the boots. In fact, Adler goes as far as stitching their sole plate to the upper just to help prevent sole separation. And I know that Adidas does this too, because I have a pair of the Copa Mundials here that Adidas has been selling for decades and decades. And if you look at the front of these boots, you can see 3 rivets that do just that. They help reinforce the sole plate. Now, I don't know if Adidas doesn't want to add this reinforcement because they think it would be ugly on the sole plate, or potentially because they think it would be too costly. But I think I can speak for myself and a lot of other players who would rather have a little bit of added reinforcements in the sole plates here, because no one wants to pay $250 for a pair of boots only to have the sole plate come off from the upper within a month or 2. And that doesn't just go for Adidas, the same thing can be said for Nike, New Balance, Puma, and any other top-end brand. So to wrap things up on playability, I did really enjoy these, but I would recommend to most people, including myself, go down half a size to get the best experience. Now, the Copa Pure 3 Elites are going to retail for $250. And to be fair, that's actually $10 less than the F50 Elite and the Predator Elite. And it's $30 less than the Predator Elite with the fold-over tongue, which is going to retail for $280. And as far as getting value from the Copa Pure series, so far, the Elite model is really the only one I can recommend, because when I tried on the $140 Copa Pure Pro, these just didn't fit very well because the heel was so shallow. But that being said, $250 is still really pricey for a pair of leather football boots, especially considering how many great options there are under $200. So with that being said, let's get into the competition for the Copa Pure 3. Now the first, and I think most obvious competitor to the Copa Pure 3 is going to be Adidas's own Copa Icon 2. Now the Icon 2s are an amazing pair of boots, and at $180, they are $70 cheaper than the Copa Pure 3. And not only are they cheaper, but they're also 10 grams lighter, coming in at around 218 grams. And the fit in both these boots are going to be great, and the uppers on both these boots are great as well. But if we're talking about personal preference, I gotta say I slightly prefer the feel of the leather that you get with the Icon 2s. I also think that with the Icon 2s, you get a little bit more volume in the toe box at the front of the boots, so if width is a concern for you, I would probably lean slightly more towards the Icons. And then 3 other worthy competitors to the Icon 2 are going to be the Mizuno Morelia Neo 4 Beta. This is the elite version that retails for around $160. Then the Adler Horenzos, which with shipping are around $170, and then the Asics DS Lite X Fly 5, which I got for, as I said, around $160. These 3 leather boots are all cheaper than the Copa Pure 3, and in my opinion, they're just as good, if not better on feet. And then if you're looking for similar boots to the Copa Pure 3 that are actually non-leather, I would point you towards both the Tiempo Legend 10 Pro from Nike, as well as the F50 Messi Pro from Adidas. Now both of those boots are second tier models, so they're gonna retail for $140, but they are amazing value. And while neither of them are leather football boots, they both have these really soft synthetic uppers that feel great on feet. So if leather isn't really a deal breaker for you, both of those options are gonna be great. So final thoughts on the Copa Pure 3 Elites. Well, honestly, these are a great pair of boots, and it feels good to finally be able to recommend all of the top end models from Adidas. But at the same time, it makes me a little bit annoyed because if Adidas has shown that they can make a great top end boot, they should at least focus on making a comfortable and wearable takedown version of it. Now, I don't care if you make the takedown models bulkier or even use cheaper materials, but at least make sure that the heel areas are deep enough and comfortable enough so that they're playable. So while I wish the takedown models were better, the Copa Pure 3 Elite is still a great option. But if you do think about getting a pair, I would recommend going down about a half size, and also maybe wait a few weeks because these will probably go on sale closer to $200. And if you do get the chance, I would also check out the Icon 2 because these are cheaper and you might actually end up liking them more. Alright guys, and that is going to do it for this video. Please leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new boot reviews. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.